What's going on, everybody? Aaron here from Departures Capital, and we're here with Keith Neumeyer, the founder of First Quantum, president and CEO of First Majestic Silver, and the founder and chairman of First Mining Gold. How are you doing today, Keith?
Good, Aaron. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm just really excited to be interviewing such an industry veteran, someone who's founded 3 amazing companies. And so we're here to talk about First Mining Gold. So first, can you tell me a little bit about First Mining Gold and what you guys are up to?
Well, I think first off, the 3 companies that you mentioned all have a similarity, and not only do they all start with the word first, which is unique in itself, but they are founded at the depths of the market. Back in the 90s when I put First Quantum together, it was really not an easy time to be putting a copper company together at that time. And when I put First Majestic together in early 2000s, it was a pretty tough time then as well. And we were able to buy up some pretty interesting silver assets with very little competition. And today build one of the top silver producing mining companies on the planet. And I did the same thing with First Mining Gold. In 2014, 2015, it was a pretty dismal looking market. Things were trading at ridiculously low valuations. And, there was several really good companies out there that had raised, tens of millions of dollars, that had drilled out, millions of ounces of gold and were sitting at market caps that were, a small portion of the amount that was actually invested in the assets. And, some of these companies like Gold Canyon, for example, was around for 20 years. And at the peak of its market, it was somewhere in the $400 million market cap range. And we picked it up for $50 million in First Mining stock. And that's one of the largest undeveloped gold projects there is in all of Canada. And then, we did the same, when I hit the ground running, when I decided to put the company together in mid-2014, put the management team together. We got it public in April 2015, and we turned around and bought 8 companies in 15 months, and that being one of them. And I can talk about the other ones as well. But what I did, I had my technical team put together a list of interesting assets or interesting companies. We set out a criteria, had to have a minimum 1 million ounces of gold, a minimum of 1 gram gold, and had to be in a good jurisdiction, easily permittable, and low holding costs. And, there's a whole list of criteria that we had, and a whole group of companies fell into that mix or that criteria, that list. And we started, we started with a list of 100 companies. We cut it down to our top 10 companies. And out of the top 10 companies that we created a list for, we ended up buying 6 of them. So over the next 15 months, I even surprised myself. I had an objective of buying 4 companies, and we ended up buying 8 of them, 6 of which were on our top list, or our top 10 list. So it was pretty exciting time, and we raised quite a lot of money as well. And today the share price is down substantially from where it was, but we have one of the best assets of undeveloped gold projects, I think, in the junior mining space.
That's great. And, personally myself, I've always been a precious metal bull, and I'm sure that you are as well. Before we get into the other things, I'd like to hear your take just on gold and silver, and, because I've always been a believer. So maybe we can just get your take on gold and silver as an investment for my viewers, because, we've got a lot of smaller investors here that are going to watch this show. A lot of my crowd is cannabis, but they also I love mining. So that's why, they invest in the Canadian cannabis space. And I feel like the Canadian mining space goes hand in hand. So let's get your take on just gold and silver, the future for it in the next 5 to 10 years, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the cannabis space is just amazing. I think it's pulled out a lot of capital from the miners over the last couple of years, which is interesting. It's very similar to back in 2000, 2001, where you couldn't find a mining analyst they all became fuel cell analysts.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you remember that, but fuel cells back then were quite a hot topic, and there was companies coming out, dozens and dozens of publicly traded companies all working on fuel cells. And now, of course, we have dozens and dozens of companies working on the marijuana space. Some will survive, of course, and some won't. But that's the capital markets, and I look at this time period very similar to that time. Where from the Nasdaq peaked out in March of 2000, and over the next 3 years, the Nasdaq dropped by 80%. And it was really that 3-year period that was the beginning of the bull run that lasted 10 years. We had gold at $250 back in 2002. It's silver at $5 an ounce, and I put together First Majestic, in 2003, 2004, and
fantastic time.
And I figured, silver was going to hit $50. It did. I took 10 years, mind you, but I didn't get there. I didn't expect silver was going to go back to 13, mind you. That was not sure if anyone predicted that, but definitely I did not. And gold went from 1900 to almost just slightly over 1,000, and that's what created the valuation. That's what created First Mining.
Definitely.
If that environment didn't happen, then First Mining wouldn't exist today. So I was able to take advantage of a pretty dismal market, but gold and silver are two different animals. Gold is a currency, and it's sure it's precious, and there's no doubt about that. But gold is the granddaddy of all currencies, and everyone should have some gold in their portfolio, regardless of what they think. Just as just like you have, many people would have euros, or many people would have US dollars, or it's the same type of thing. It's just a diversification. Silver is an industrial metal. I look at silver as a strategic metal. Everything that we do as a human race, even this video conference that we're currently doing right now, would not be possible without silver. You getting to work today would not be possible without silver. Electrifying the planet, going electric vehicles, for example, going to solar panels, energy, everything that we're doing today to get better at what we're doing as a human race requires two metals primarily, and that is silver and copper. And everyone should have a good copper company in their portfolio, and everyone should have a good silver company in their portfolio. But I know today we're focusing on gold and First Mining gold, but that's kind of my view on why you should have these metals in your portfolio. My view of these metals, of course, I've been wrong over the last couple of years. As I said earlier, I didn't think silver was going to go from 50 to 13, but I do think silver is going to go triple digits. And I know when you're looking at $15 silver, triple digit silver seems almost unbelievable and even silly to talk about, quite frankly. And I get criticized for being so bullish, but look, I'm a $3,000 gold guy, $5,000 gold guy, and $150 silver guy. That's where I think we're going. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but over the next few years, that's what I think we're going to see.
Yes, I totally agree. I do believe we'll run, and I feel like that's something that my viewers need to know about. They need to know about the miners as opposed to the cannabis companies. We still do believe in cannabis, but that's why we really want to get into the precious metal miners and just show some awareness, because I feel like my generation needs to start investing in those kind of companies. So we're going to get straight into what kind of projects are you guys currently working on? You can tell us a bit about First Gold now.
Sure. Yeah, First Mining Gold. Look, the core assets are in Ontario primarily. There's the Springpole asset, which I mentioned already. It's about 5 million ounces of gold there. Open pitable, needs permitting, and it's permitting takes time, of course. It's never a simple process, but the gold's there, and I'm banking on that becoming a producing mine sometime in the next 4 or 5 years, thereabouts, approximately. And whether that's aggressive or not, time will tell. We'll see, but I think it's going to be a huge economic driver for that part of Northern Ontario. That part of Ontario is in desperate needs of jobs and roads and electricity. There's nothing there, and it's mine will bring a lot of wealth to that part of Ontario. So I'm looking very much forward to being part of that development. Goldland, another big project, a couple million ounces there, with substantial blue sky, we think. We did some interesting drilling in 2018, which helped upgrade the resource. There's going to be further drilling in 2019 and of course beyond. And we're looking to develop that into, of course, another producing mine. And I would suggest that your listeners go to the company's website and then look at the results, the drilling results that were coming out of that company. I forget exactly the amount of holes that were drilled. There was well over 100 holes were drilled last year, and there were some pretty interesting visible gold and exciting intersections. But it needs more drilling, like in any project. Cameron is another great project, big chunky land package, 1 million ounces there, decent grade. We didn't get around to drilling it yet. With a portfolio our size and limited capital, you've always got to try to identify where the money can be spent in any given year. And Cameron will get some of our attention, we're hoping, this year. And then Pickle Crow, another 1 million ounce, higher grade, old mine. It's actually got a mill sitting on site. It's surprising that it's not producing today. We've actually thought about bringing it into production ourselves. We don't have any immediate plans to do that, but it's something that we've talked about internally. And then we've got our Hope Brook project in Newfoundland, which is another old mine producing with over 1 million ounces sitting there. And then we've got a portfolio of assets in Quebec, all quite interesting as well. Nothing quite as advanced as the Ontario projects. And then we've got a big portfolio of some 20 projects in Mexico, which is all grassroots type exploration projects. So we got a pretty broad portfolio, 25 projects.
Wow, that's amazing.
A lot, yeah.
You guys got a lot of stuff on your plate and a lot of stuff going on. That's great.
Sorry for interrupting you, but I'm a big believer in diversity. A lot of companies in the space, in the mining space, have a single asset. And it's very common to see that. If you buy a company with a single asset, sometimes you do extremely well. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. But for my money, I like to have broad-based portfolios where the company doesn't hang on one particular asset, and if something goes wrong, whatever that may be, the company just doesn't fall to pieces as a result of that occurring. With such a broad asset base, we've got a lot of things going on for sure, but there's a lot of value there for investors, and sometimes it gets lost because that in shareholders will say, well, what should we be focusing on? Well, there's really not one thing. It's the portfolio. It's an extremely unusual portfolio to have such a large portfolio like that in a single company.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And diversity is key to so many things in business and investing, your strategy, all that kind of stuff. So that's amazing to hear that news. So how do you work with the communities around your projects? I guess, a lot of people might be concerned about that kind of stuff. And how do you guys work with the communities around your projects?
Well, you have to be very inclusive. Social license is for the mining space, for the mining companies, is really, the most important thing that we have, and it's something that you need to earn over time, and it's something you need to maintain over time. And like the Springpole project I mentioned to you earlier, when it does become a producing operation, it'll be supplying hundreds and hundreds of jobs for the region, and it'll be producing for a couple of decades, if not even more, depending on blue sky and exploration upside and all those kinds of things. But it'll be around for a long time. So the amount of wealth that a mine like that can create in the region is pretty astounding. And but in order to get there, you've got a lot of things you need to do, and building roads into places that have never had roads, building electrical power lines, building water infrastructure, building living quarters and buildings and all of these kinds of things. It takes time to do that, and you need to have people on site, people living in these communities as part of it. You can't be bringing in a bunch of foreigners or outside people to do all that jobs. The labor force is there, whether it's in Mexico or whether it's in Ontario. The First Nations are very dominant in this part of Ontario, and they need these jobs, and they're the ones that should get the jobs, quite frankly. Training needs to be put in place, and all the different things need to be put in place. But you do need to have support, from the government, from local communities, and we work on those things constantly. It's something we take highly seriously.
That's great. Well, I think the company has a lot to offer for those communities, and that's really nice to hear.
When I drive through these towns, and not in Ontario, because we're not producing in Ontario, but for First Majestic, when I drive through the small towns in Mexico that we're active in, a lot of cases, these were small little ghost towns with 200, 300, 400, 500 people living in them, and now we're active there, after a decade, and you see automobiles, cars on the streets, you see paved roads, you see the schools full of kids with uniforms, using computers, and stores full of food and everything else. It's just, you drive through these towns and you compare them to what they looked like before we showed up, and it's pretty exciting stuff. It's night and day, and I get a real kick out of that.
Yeah, of course.
I'm looking forward to doing similar things in Northern Ontario.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So our last question here, what advantage does your company have compared to some of the other miners, or why would I pick First Mining Gold over another one of the miners?
Well, I think it comes down to people first, management teams. I'm not saying First Mining Gold's management team is perfect.
Yep.
We just did bring in a new CEO, a fellow named Dan Wilton, who came from the banking sector and the institutional investing sector. Very well-known guy, and we're pretty excited about having him on board. We had a CEO search over several months, and he was an obvious first choice for us. So it was pretty exciting. He took on the role. He just literally started last week. So and he's got lots of great ideas, and it's nice that we've got a real strong financial guy now leading the company, because when you've got a portfolio the size of First Mining, a lot of the decisions that are made are very financially, orientated type decisions. And so you need a really good guy like that. And when it comes to my contacts within the industry as well, at the right times, we can bring in the right people and develop the assets as we are required to. So always look at people first, and then secondly, look at the assets. And I think we've got just some fantastic asset base. There's nothing that comes close to it. I don't know of a single other junior company out there that even has a close to comparable asset base. So those two things, I think, trump pretty well everything. And if I'm right about this, the beginning of this next gold cycle, which I think we've already started, I think First Mining will be a pretty interesting company to be watching over the next couple of years.
That's amazing, and we'll definitely be adding coverage. You're going to be on our watch list. We're going to be talking about the company more so, and I'm super excited to get this video out for my viewers to watch this. So that pretty much wraps up this interview. Once again, I wanted to thank you for being on our show and dropping your knowledge and everything. So yeah, that's pretty much it, Keith.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
I would like to just finish off by saying both these companies have websites. First Majestic Silver, First Mining Gold. Go to the company's websites. Don't take my word for making investment decisions. Go and do your own research. Look at the PowerPoints. Both companies are pretty good at keeping their public information up to date, so it should be all up to date. And call the companies. Talk to the investor relations people, and really do a bit of a deep dive, and see if they actually fit into your type of investment thesis or portfolio. I'm available on Twitter. Keith Keith_Neumeyer on Twitter. I don't do a lot there, but feel free to join me on Twitter as well.
We will be joining you on Twitter as well.
Okay.
All right, Keith. Well, thank you for your time.
Thanks,
and I
Dan. Thank you.
hope you have a good day.